Going to call the meeting to order. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, GL Chapter 38, Section 18, and the Governor's June 16, 2021 revised order, this meeting of the Berkshire Hills Regional School District School Committee will be conducted both in person and remote. In-person attendance will be limited to Berkshire Hills Regional School District School Committee members, superintendent, and business administrator. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted at this time. However, the meeting may be accessed remotely through Zoom and or Facebook. Agenda items listed are those reasonably anticipated by the chair. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed. Those items not listed may be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by law. This meeting is being recorded by CTSB and the school committee recorder and will be broadcast. Once transcribed and approved, minutes will be made public and posted to our website. So I'll start with a roll call just to make sure. Ann Hutchinson is not here tonight. Jason St. Peter?
Here.
Don Stephen? Here. Bonnie Bond?
Here.
There you are. Good. Molly Thomas?
Here.
Bill Fields?
Here.
Diane Singer?
Here.
Corey Spray?
Here.
Rich Zahoni is not here, and that's it. I'm here. So we'll start with the minutes of May 20th, 2021 and June 17th, 2021. Do I have a motion? So I have a motion by Corey. Do I have a second? Second by Bonnie. Any discussion? Roll call vote. Jason?
Aye.
Bon? Aye. Bonnie?
Aye.
Molly?
Aye.
Bill?
Yes.
Ann?
Yes.
Corey?
Yes.
And aye, it's unanimous. And we move right into the superintendent's report.
Okay, before I get to the good news, I just want to share a couple procedural or housekeeping things. We've gotten some feedback from folks that using the OWL speakers or conference devices aren't always as clear as they could be. So I've got a couple recommendations or suggestions. If somebody is speaking, particularly in present from the school committee, if you identify yourself before you make your comment, that would be helpful to the listening audience. So I'll try to remind people to do that. So that's one thing. On the other end, for those who are participating remotely, some people have their full names identified on the screen, and that's really helpful. And some people have initials or phone numbers or their kids' or wife's names or husband's names, business name, any number of things. So if it's possible and you know how to change your name for the meeting, even if you're using your daughter's laptop, instead of being Snazzy J, if you could actually be who you are, that would be helpful. And I think that's good for people participating, but it's also good for media and reporters who are trying to cover things. The one last thing, and some people know about this and some don't, if you have a relatively small screen, you could look at it in gallery view, which is like I'm looking at it, which is like the Brady Bunch, a whole bunch of little boxes. If you change it from gallery view to speaker view, it'll automatically go to the person who's speaking. As we all get older and have issues with our eyesight, being in speaker view might actually be easier to see people as opposed to being in gallery view. So I know the technology is imperfect. We're trying to work on it and fine tune things, but trying to introduce yourself, trying to change your name if you're on a device so it's clear, and trying to be in speaker view as opposed to gallery view might help a little bit. Okay. And again, particularly for people in the audience, if things come up, you know, my email is peter.dillon@bhrsd.org. If people have suggestions, we're happy to continue to try to make this work better. Good news, I'll share a couple things. Some of it's good news, some of it's not so good news. And then we'll hear from Katie Retzel, our principal at Muddy Brook, and Ben and Christy are both off this week. On the good news front, we're running summer programs in the elementary school and at the high school. There's a very small program at the middle school, but mostly we're doing work and maintenance work in the middle school. Those programs are going along quite nicely. We've gotten some good feedback on some of what's happening in them. And I'd like to thank the staff coming off a challenging year to continue to work through the summer. We're partnered with a number of community organizations, and they're doing really nice work. So that's some of the good news. On the less than good news, more than ever, I'd like to encourage people who are eligible to be vaccinated to be vaccinated. We are starting to see additional positive cases of COVID in the schools and in the community. Yesterday, we had 2 students at the elementary school test positive, and then that initiates the whole rigmarole of contact tracing and notification. As a result of that, there are about 30 students at the elementary school whose summer programming is going to be cut short because they'll have to quarantine. So that's a pain. Every day people ask me about masks, and I don't have a definitive answer on masks right now. The CDC issued some revised guidance the other day, and as I understand it, the threshold for wearing masks has been met in much of the country, but it happens to not be met in Berkshire County. So the last time I looked at the numbers, there are about 4 cases per 100,000 in Berkshire County, and the CDC recommendation, as I understand it, is if there are 50 or more cases per 100,000, then people should be masked. So we're not near there yet, but we could very quickly be near there. The governor and the commissioner were pretty adamant early in June about school year is going to be normal in September, and we're not going to do masks. And if you had like the magic 8-ball and you read it and it's like all signs point to no, I think the school year is going to be more normal, but it's too early to comment on masks. And in a couple of weeks, when sort of the trajectory of this all becomes clearer, I'll share an update on it. The other sort of connected news is obviously the Delta variant's around. People who are vaccinated, if they end up getting infected, appear to have very minor symptoms, and people who aren't vaccinated appear to have pretty serious symptoms. So anybody 12 and up can get vaccinated. I think we're doing well as a community for some time, but there are people out there who aren't vaccinated, and I really would hope that they would get vaccinated. And then we'll wait on the CDC guidance on pediatric vaccinations and what happens there. But again, I had hoped that by the start of school, that would be approved and people start doing it. And it looks like that may not be available till January or sometime. So that's not necessarily good news, but that's part of the COVID update. I'll get back to that later in the agenda as well. I think the other thing that I'd like to do now is have Katie Retzel talk about some of what's going on at the elementary school. Importantly, and I'm not being informal in calling Katie, but as you know, we've got 2, maybe 3, depending on how you count, Kates on our staff. So we're calling Principal Retzel Katie, and Kate Bertzel, Kate. Okay, so Katie, the floor is yours.
Okay, thanks. Hi, everyone. I'd like to start first by mentioning that, and this might not be a surprise to many of you, that Courtney and Christine have been, that's my husky, sorry. have been awesome, and a lot of help to get me started. But mostly my weeks since I started have been getting to know just the staffs and students and some of the families here and there. And basically what things are called here as opposed to what they were called in Lee. So some things are sounding familiar. I think Peter is going to speak about this later, but we did lose a second grade teacher. So I'm going to work on hiring in the next couple weeks, a replacement second grade teacher. And I am in the process of organizing and almost have a full list of folks who are going to be the instructional leaders for Muddy Brook. So that's almost all set. And in general, I've been doing a little bit of assisting with the Project Connection kids. And as was mentioned, we had to close off some of the groups yesterday. So unfortunately, that's how I met some parents in the parking lot, explaining to them about what had happened, because it happened really quickly at the very end of the day. So we had to pull together notice. I was able to go swimming one of the days with the group. So that was fun. But other than that, things are rolling along and starting to make sense, and looking forward to a great year.
Great, thanks, Katie, appreciate it. Any questions about her sort of induction, transition, what's going on? Okay. So that's good news. As I mentioned, Ben and Christy are both off this week. They continue to do really good work. Christy put together a very thoughtful proposal to the Bar Foundation. We were invited as an offshoot of our previous work to apply for a grant to continue school reform work at the high school. So the grant's in for $300,000. We'll hear about that in early September. So I commend her for doing that. And folks at Bar have been really accommodating and give us good feedback as we were submitting it. So I think that's it for good news. The next thing I have in front of you is a proposed instructional coach position. There's a job description in your packet. We had a teacher retire who was in another role working across the middle and the high school. And in speaking with the three principals, we are recommending, rather than refilling that position, that we repurpose that role as an instructional coach. And the thinking there is to have another position that works directly with teachers to support them in growing their capacity as teachers. The person would work across the 3 buildings to coach and support other teachers, would occasionally team teach and model work, and we think would help our staff develop additional capacity. This is a pretty common role across almost every district I've worked in. Some districts have multiple instructional coaches. Right now, most of this work is being done by principals and assistant principals. One of the interesting things, and I'm proposing that this stays as a teacher line, but in looking down the road and building our administrative capacity, having teaching positions and instructional coach position, it sort of creates a pipeline for potential future administrators. So I think in the short term, we help grow our teachers to be more effective. And in the long term, somebody who does this role effectively would be well positioned to potentially step into an administrative role down the line. I think that gives you enough context. I'm sure folks have questions, and wonderings about it, and I'm happy to respond to that. I'm proposing that this person reports to the Director of Learning and Teaching, because this work really sits there. It's a non-evaluative role, it's a non-supervisory role. It stays within the teacher's contract. So any questions or wonderings people have about this?
Peter, in the school districts that you work in that have these positions, was there normally one that will cover 3 schools? Or I'm just worried that one person for 3 schools.
Yeah, no, it's a little unusual, right? So in other contexts where I've worked, there would be one or multiple coaches per building. So having somebody work across 3 buildings is a little challenging. I think depending on who we're able to find and hire, we might make a decision that, well, the person's working across 3 buildings. In their first year, they're going to focus primarily on new teachers, right? Or in the first year, they're going to focus primarily on math instruction. Now, I can't really say that not knowing what their background is. So if we get somebody, I mean, anybody can focus on new teachers, right? But I don't want to say we're going to focus on math instruction and then we're not able to hire somebody with a strong math background. So I think there'll be a little bit of a negotiation around that depending on who's in the candidate pool.
Other questions? Corey?
Yeah, Corey Sprague speaking. I guess, is it possible that it can somehow also, I know it's reporting up to John Bruno, but is it possible that there could be some division of labor that way as well? Because I do worry, to Bonnie's point, I think we tend to do this sometimes where it's like we're kind of geographically close and it seems easy to hire one person to work across 3 schools, but it becomes an impossible job, especially if it ends up being an outside hire where they're half the battle is just getting to know 3 distinct populations of students, of teachers, of admin staff, and I just would not want to set the person up to fail.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think we'll be really deliberate and thoughtful about it. The easiest thing might be to have them provide support to new teachers. So then it's 5 or 6 people in each of the 3 buildings, and that could be their real focus, and then they could build on the other stuff. I need, next week, the principals and I are doing a 3-day, and the other administrative staff are doing a 3-day retreat, and I think we'll hammer out some more of the details there. I'm comfortable about how the role is stated. How we schedule the person is a little bit to be determined. But I don't want to just say that they're only going to work out of the elementary school because I think that would be a missed opportunity. But again, like I do acknowledge that there are probably 4 or 5 people in the district that work across 3 buildings, and it's more challenging to work across 3 buildings than it is to work across 2. And working across 2 is more challenging than 1. So we have to set some constraints and expectations there.
Other questions?
I have a question, Peter. I'm kind of confused as to it. When I first read about this, I'm Bill Fields. Is this, we have now instructional teams within each school, correct?
Within each school bill, we have positions called instructional leads, and they meet to advance largely planning work and to be a sounding board. With this role, this person would have no separate class responsibilities with kids, and their full role would be to work with colleagues to improve their capacity as teachers. In the context of that work, they might occasionally work with classes to model best practices, but they won't have separate responsibility for groups.
Okay, because it struck me at first that this is a redundant aspect because of the teams that are in each building. But I understand this is a little more, this involves all the 3 buildings at the same time. So okay.
And I think the other folks, the instructional leads, are doing their work largely after school in meetings around teaching, and this person's focus will be to be in classrooms most of the time and occasionally supporting teachers in planning for instruction. So it's a little nuanced, but it's a very different role.
Okay. Is there a pay scale that's been established for this?
What I'm recommending is that they're simply on the existing teacher's contract. So they're working the same number of days as a teacher. They would be placed on the salary schedule the same way a teacher would be placed. So if somebody has a master's degree and X number of years of experience, that translates into a particular dollar amount.
Okay, thank you. Yep.
This is more, it's not supervisory, it's more collegial, helping another teacher master what they're doing.
Yeah, correct. Right, and I mean, I would love, like, in early in my career, I had somebody, like a coach who met with me and mentored me and supported. I think people in all professions benefit from thoughtful feedback from a peer without the high stakes part of it. You get it right or you get rid of it.
Any other questions? Do I have a motion to accept this job description? Sean?
I make a motion to accept the job description.
Do I have a second? Have a second from Bonnie? So any other discussion? Hearing none, it's a roll call vote. Jason?
Aye.
Vaughn?
Aye.
Bonnie?
Aye.
Molly?
Aye.
Bill?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
Corey?
Aye.
And aye, it's unanimous.
Okay, thank you very much. And obviously I'll report back to you. And at the next meeting after the retreat, hopefully we have a candidate in hand or in place and proposed structure to share with you. So the next thing are vacancies. We've had a very, very busy hiring season. And if you turn, not in order a little bit, but if you turn to the personnel report, you'll see all these positions that we filled. So a .4 French teacher, a special education teacher, a social studies teacher, a science teacher, a Spanish teacher, a library media specialist, and a math teacher. There are a couple more appointment calls that I'm doing early next week. One for an English position at the high school. We have the position that Katie mentioned, the second grade positions. Somebody resigned over the summer, and so we're looking to fill an elementary school position. And then the other place we're having a really tough time are filling paraprofessional roles. So we're working hard on that, and I'll come back to the school committee about that additionally. But particularly if there are people in the audience, and maybe in her notes, Eileen would put a little blurb about this. And I'll get stuff out on our website and all the usual channels. But we're very interested in hiring paraprofessionals. And if folks are interested in that, just feel free to reach out to me directly, and I'll talk you up about the role and some of the benefits and the potential impact you could have. It's an important role, and it's a position that's been hard to fill. We have several vacancies there, and we'd love to talk to you about that opportunity. Any other questions or wonderings about vacancies? Okay, good. Summer building project. So I think he's on. I just want to check. Steve Soul, are you on?
Don't see him.
Can I ask one quick question?
Yes, sir.
Sorry. Any updates on the high school English?
Yes, that's the high school English position. We have a candidate, and I'm talking to him on Monday to place him on the salary schedule. So hopefully Monday afternoon, I can tell you that deal is sealed.
You missed the high school project, the two-pronged approach.
I'll come back to it.
Yeah, well, Steve's not on. I was thinking you might.
Okay.
He's tough.
Let me try to get Steve on. Sharon, are you on?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay, good. So let's talk a little bit about the high school project two-prong approach. We'd shared this document at our previous meeting, and I don't think we spent much time talking about it. And we might have overlooked it, or I don't know what happened. But so we shared it again. I asked Sharon to put this together, and for people in the viewing audience, there are really 3 pages. There are 2 possibilities around a future high school project. One is doing it through the MSBA, and we hope to hear from them in November or December. And then the other option, which we're also entertaining, is the do-it-yourself approach. Most of the requirements for both approaches are very, very similar and overlap significantly. In the packet, there's a little flow chart for the MSBA approach, and then Sharon put together the similarities and differences in what's labeled attachment 2. And again, most of those are very similar. The difference is if we do it without the MSBA, we're not reporting back to them on a regular basis. Sharon, did I miss any nuances or anything you wanted to add?
no, I think you got that. I think there's as clear in the comparison, and that it's sending the MSBA all of the documents, the maintenance documents, all of that capital documents that they require, but otherwise you've covered that the process will be pretty much the same either way.
Okay. Are there any questions or things people are wondering about?
Raise your hand, or if you're a school committee member, just speak, identify yourself. I don't see anything.
I don't see anybody there. I'll go back and forth between a couple of pages. Okay, so I think this will just be a good resource. Like, you may not save everything I hand out, but it's a good one to put in a binder or a folder if you have one. We can come back to it. So let me now go to the summer building projects. I think Steve got on. So Steve, are you there?
Yep, I'm on.
Good, thank you, Steve. So Steve, can you just take a couple minutes to tell folks some of the remarkable things your maintenance and custodian folks have been doing this summer? I think you'll be amazed by the range and number of projects and work.
Sure. Let's see, in the high school, we needed some more classroom space, so we're dividing up a couple of rooms so that we can make 2 rooms out of 1. The nurses area and a classroom in the H wing. Also doing some significant work in the A wing and an internal classroom so that we can, I believe that Kristinello and John Hartcorn are going to be teaching out of that room as well as their shops. And we've removed some of the lockers as part of that project, which proved to be a bigger undertaking than maybe we anticipated. So we did 2 banks of lockers as of right now. And we also have a fairly significant project that we haven't quite started yet in the elementary school. We plan on creating 2 outdoor classrooms similar to the one at the high school, one at the middle school and one at the elementary school, hopefully both prior to the start of the school year. And then we have some projects going on that are contracted out for our HVAC system in both the middle school and the high school that are fairly significant with regard to scope. So those are the things I'm thinking of off the top of my head.
Okay, great. I spent some time Monday walking through all the buildings, and they look great. They're doing a lot of work. I was in the elementary school, and on the second or third floor, depending on your perspective, they were painting, wiping down walls. The building's in really good shape. So thank you, Steve, and thanks to your team for doing all of that.
Sure.
Great. So just going back, and I think the last thing on my part of the agenda is the COVID-19. To reiterate for folks who joined a little later, we continue to plan around the fall. We continue to wait for guidance from the governor. I'm in constant conversation with the Board of Health people, health inspector in Great Barrington. We're all hoping for the best, and things are looking a little dicey, right? And we'll see what that means. It's too early to weigh in on whether we're going to do masks or not. But I think we all have a commitment to doing in-person learning. So that's our plan. And whether some people wear masks in some contexts remains to be decided. The other thing I saw today, the first drawing of the Vax-A-Millions thing happened. And I was deeply disappointed that I didn't win, or at least my son didn't get the $300,000 scholarship. But I think there are many more opportunities, so I'll be hopeful about that. Any questions about COVID-19, start of school, things connected to that? Yeah.
Corey Sprague, is there any way, and I don't know if it's that we're coming up with a worst case scenario, or I understand that kind of it feels too soon to start planning, but I also feel like last summer we probably waited too long and then had to scramble and then had to delay and things like that. So knowing what we know now, is there any kind of planning and communication that can happen now so we're not caught playing catch up?
Yeah, I think there is, and we're doing a lot of meetings and stuff around that, and I could probably bring a range of scenarios to the school committee for our next meeting, but I don't, I think the decision point going into school is going to be whether people are wearing masks or not, and in what grades, not whether we're going to have school in person, right? So I'm very confident we're going to have school in person, unless there's the 5th variant that is yet to come out. So I think the big debate is going to be around masks or not, and if so, in what grades and for whom. And from instructional and learning perspective, the impact of that is relatively minor compared to the previous year's discussion, which was remote, hybrid or in person and bouncing around those. And I've heard nothing about impact on athletics, extracurricular activities, anything yet.
Are we going to be relying upon the state for guidance again?
Yeah, I mean, this is
I think that was one of our biggest issues last year, was
Right.
relying. Every time we came up with a plan, that plan got blown up by the state.
right. So, I mean, if we don't approach this slightly differently, we're banging our head going down to the basement for the 8th time. Massachusetts is the land of local autonomy and purportedly local control. I think we, as a group, should weigh the CDC guidance, the state guidance, and then make a decision that works best for Berkshire Hills, right? So maybe we were a little more, in hindsight, submissive to their directives than we should have been, and I think we can put a stake in the ground this time around. Does that seem?
Well, I think we know more than we did a year ago.
Yeah.
And the state does too, but I think we're a little wiser, and I think we can navigate this a little better.
Yeah, no, I do too. Yeah, and importantly, the CDC's guidance, and I think I said this at the beginning, was around 50 or more cases in communities of 100,000, right? And where Berkshire County is like 120 something thousand, maybe 130. And as I looked at the data today, there were 4 cases in Berkshire County, or reported cases. So we're not anywhere near above 50 cases, but right. But let's see what happens, and let's track it carefully. Okay, so I think that's it for me. Steve, want to take us through subcommittee reports?
Yeah, I'll make that simple. As any subcommittee met since our last meeting? Seeing that no subcommittee has met during the summer, we'll move on. You've already done the personnel report. Any old or new business? Any public comment?
So if you're public or in the public and want to comment, you can physically raise your hand. You could click the little button in the reactions thing, which will raise your hand. And we'll wait a sec for people to figure that out. So Erica, can you unmute yourself, state who you are, and then ask your question or make your comment?
Sure. My name is Erica Milkey. I live in Great Barrington. I would just wanted to confirm that is it true that the next school committee isn't until just like a few days before school starts? Or did you guys plan another one for earlier in August?
The next one is August 26th. If something came up, if the COVID numbers shifted dramatically, we could always schedule a meeting with 48 hours notice. But we don't have one formally scheduled till the 26th.
Okay, and that's when decisions would be made around masks.
No, I think those decisions probably will have been made by then by the administration.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, in my mind, and I always, and this makes people crazy, and I'm sorry about this, but it's too early today to announce it, but around the middle of August, somewhere around August 15th, I'd like to share an initial plan for what I propose we're doing, knowing that if there were dramatic shifts in the numbers, it might change. And again, really the decision point I see is not whether we're in school face-to-face, but whether we're in school and some of us are wearing masks or all of us are wearing masks.
And we could have a meeting before then, Eric. It's a good point. But at this point, it may not be a bad time because things change so quickly, as we found out. Making a decision too soon sometimes backfires on us too. Which we've never been accused of doing that, but we may have done it a couple times.
Yeah, no.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I have a question, Eileen.
Eileen, go ahead.
I wondered whether Steve has negotiated Peter's new contract.
No, Peter's been on vacation for a month. Not really, though. He's probably done as many meetings just from a farther location, so now we'll do it face-to-face when now that he's back.
Okay. Next question. The core program process overview, all of that. Do you expect the school committee to have any reaction to it? Is it just going to quietly be adopted, or is there going to be more discussion? I'm wondering about the costs, where they come from. If
Eileen, I imagine we'll come back to it. All the two-path thing, or the two-prong approach is just a process outline right now, and sort of about potential next steps. I think what you're asking about is, will the school committee make a decision or recommendation about doing one or the other? And I think the intent of the school committee was to see what happens with the MSBA, and ideally we're accepted into the MSBA process. And if we were not accepted into the MSBA process, then to have alternative pathway ready to go.
Yeah, I think that sheet was an informational document for us to use as we go along. And I think the school committee's already made a decision, and the state is going to make the final decision for us in December or January. Peter's optimistic November. And if the state says we're in, then I would think we'll go that path. If they say we're not, we're going it alone. I think we've already made that decision.
Other questions, Eileen, first to you, and then other folks, any other questions or thoughts?
it's a little clearer to me. Thank you.
I don't see any other hands. I'm going to go back and look at the other screen.
No, I don't see any hands under participants.
I have one quick question.
Yes.
Corey Sprague, as a follow-up from the last meeting, one thing that got thrown out was this idea of having a club fair for fall activities.
Yeah.
And that would definitely be something that if we're not meeting until the end of August, we probably would have missed the boat for preseason kind of things, stuff like that. So any update on that? Was anyone charged with actually seeing that to the next step?
Yes. So there are two things going on. Christy, Gordy Soul, Kathy Erickson, and I met separately, but within a 2-day time period, around stuff connected to the 9th grade orientation. I think by email, all 9th graders were contacted around athletic things that start before school starts. And then other activities and programs and projects that start after school starts will be shared with them as part of their orientation induction. We separately had a conversation about trying to recapture the 10th graders who missed the 9th grade orientation because they started school remotely, right, in the sort of discombobulated time. And we're affectionately calling the 10th grade thing their reorientation. And there'll be some time where the 10th graders are exposed to a range of possibilities around clubs and activities at the start of school. So I think we're in pretty good shape there, and I'll check in on that. Obviously, a lot of stuff, particularly at the high school level, happens informally, student to student, and if your best friend's playing soccer, then it's sort of automatic and they suck you into it. particularly important for folks who are new to our community, new to the school community, who might not have context for all of that, to get additional.
Anyone else with questions before we adjourn? I don't see any. So by unanimous consent, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you, folks. Have a good night.